What is up, poker people? It is Saturday, October 21st, 6:30 in the evening. We are back at South Point. We're on the 1-2 list. There's about 8 tables running, about 9 people on the list, something like that. So let's see if we can't get a seat and get into the action. Couple of updates since the last time I weighed myself. I am now down 10.6 pounds, so a little over 10 pounds. So we are making progress on the health goals, which is a good thing. Did have a little bit of a setback this last week just because I got sick again. I think these casinos are breeding grounds for germs and bacteria, so I've got to be extra cautious in these places because I keep catching just a sinus infection. So, but regardless, it does set you back, and it's always hard to try to bounce back and recover. So that is a couple of updates there. What else? So we are going to be grinding a lot of poker over the next 2 weeks. So there's going to be a lot of content coming out. The vlog that is scheduled to be released this week on the 23rd is not coming out. So I just got some stuff going on with work and just, life stuff with being sick that got in the way. So apologies on that, but I may be releasing a couple of extra special episodes and doing a couple posts per week coming up. So stay tuned for that because I'm going to be putting out a lot of content here coming up. I've got some footage from previous vlogs that I haven't released yet, and then I'm going to be recording a lot of footage over the next 2 weeks. So pretty excited about that. Pretty excited for what's to come for the vlog. Let's go ahead and jump into the game. Let's see if we can't run it up, and I will see you all at the tables.
All right, before we get into this first hand, just a quick update on the editing for the vlog. Decided to add a panel on the left-hand side to help track the action better. I think it'll make it easier for all of you just to understand what's going on in each hand. But let me know what you think of the new format. If you like it, leave it in the comments below. In this first hand, we pick up a premium holding. We've got pocket kings under the gun +1. The under the gun player has limped, so I go ahead and raise this up to $15. Unfortunately, everyone decides to let their hand go, so we just end up taking down the dead money. But no worries, we're going to pick up some premium holdings here moving forward in this session, so stay tuned. All right, in this next one, the under the gun $5 straddle is on. We end up picking up king, queen of clubs here in middle position. There's one caller. I decided to raise this up to 20. I think I could be going a little bit larger here since there is one caller in the hand and the straddle is on. But as played, I don't think it's too terrible. We end up getting one call here from the small blind and everyone else gets out of the way. So we are going to go heads up here to a flop. Flop comes down ace 4-3 with one club. The small blind checks, and we decide to go ahead and continue firing here for $25. We can represent all the ace kings, ace queens, ace jacks, plus we can have all the premium hands like kings, queens, jacks, etc. Small blind quickly folds, and we end up taking down a small pot here with this hand. Okay, in this next one, we pick up a suited one-gapper in late position. Folds around to me, so I decide to raise this up. We've got 10-8 of hearts in the hijack. I like to widen my ranging range a little bit in late position, and I think this is a good candidate to do just that. So I make it 12 to go. Small blind and big blind both decide to put in the call, so we're going to go 3 ways here to a flop, which comes down pretty connected. We see jack, 10, queen, rainbow. Both players check to me. Even with a pair here, I decide to go ahead and check. This is a pretty connected board, and I don't think we're going to get value from a lot worse. See the king of clubs on the turn. Both players check to us again. This board is just too connected, I think, to be firing out on, so I check one more time. And now they both check for a third time, and I decide to exercise some showdown value here and check back. And oddly enough, the big blind shows 8-9 for a flopped straight. He didn't bet it once. I just can't believe players that slow play hands like this. I mean, I know he was afraid of the ace, but when everybody checks and shows that much weakness, you have to assume you have the best hand. It's just crazy to me that he didn't get any value from a flopped straight there. Next one, we pick up the Cowboys again. We've got King of Hearts, King of Spades. We are on the button. Folds around to the cutoff, who decides to raise this up. He makes it 10 to go. It's a new player. I don't have any reads on him. I've never played with him before, but I know I'm definitely not going to be playing for $10. I make it 35 to go. Both the blinds get out of the way, and it's back over to the cutoff, who is hemming and hawing and very perturbed that I re-raised here in this spot. But he does decide to go ahead and put in the call. So we are going to go heads up to a flop in position. Flop is a little bit scary for our exact hand. We see 4, 5, 3 with 2 clubs. Very connected board. Cutoff checks. I think I want to keep firing here and charge any draws that he might have. I go ahead and start counting out a bet, and he just quickly folds. So we end up taking down this pot with our pocket kings. Okay, in this one, we get faced with a donk bet. And it seems to be a common trend here at these low stakes. Everyone likes to call out of position and then donk bet on flops. Seems to be a lot more common nowadays than it was in previous years. So we're looking at ace-king in the cutoff. I make it 12 to go after everyone folds to me. And we get called by the big blind. She's been playing for a while at the table, and she's been taking these lines where she leads out on just about every flop. So we flop top pair, top kicker here on an A7-8 board. She donk bets $12, and that is not going to be enough here. I'm going to raise this up. I want to get value for my premium hands. I make it 36 to go. She doesn't think too long here before reluctantly letting her hand go. I'm curious what you all think players are donk betting with on flops like this. I mean, does she have a weak ace? Does she have a hand like pocket 10s or pocket 9s, and she's just trying to see if they're good? Just don't understand the reasoning here, but as played, we end up taking this pot down with our top pair, top kicker, and Big Slick. Speaking of Big Slick, we pick it up once again. This time we've got the suited variety, ace, king of diamonds in the big blind. We see a raise to $10 from the cutoff. The small blind decides to go ahead and put in the $10 call. We are not going to be playing for $10 here. I'm going to put in the 3-bet, and I decide to go a bit larger because we're going to be out of position. I make it 50 to go. Both players quickly release their hand, and we end up taking down a small pot with our suited ace-king. Okay, in this next one, we've got a limper in the hijack. This gentleman's been at the table for about 30 to 45 minutes, and he's been complaining about all the pre-flop raising that's been taking place. He's been trying to limp in just about every hand, and I go ahead and raise here to 12. He complains again and puts in the call. Obviously very frustrated with the situation. He checks. We looked at a flop of ace, deuce, 4 with 2 hearts. We've got an overpair. We do have a heart to block the flush draw. We're going to be betting here. I make it 15. He again mumbles and complains about not being able to connect with any boards and quickly folds. Okay, this time we are going to pick up a suited connector in the cutoff. We look down at 8, 7 of spades. We have one limper in middle position, and I decide to raise this up. I make it 12 to go. The big blind decides to put in the $12 call, and the limper decides to come along here as well. So we're going to go 3 ways to a flop. Flop does give us a pair, but it is a pretty connected board. We see queen, 8, 5 with 2 diamonds. Both players check it over to me. I think I could be betting here to charge all draws, but I think checking is fine as well, and that's what I decide to do. We see the 3 of hearts peel off on the turn. It's a card that really shouldn't change too much, so when the big blind decides to bet here for $16, the middle position player decides to fold. I think we can still have the best hand, so I put in the call, and we see the 6 of diamonds peel off on the river, completing the front door flush. Now the big blind decides to check. I think about betting here, but I'm not sure what we're going to get value from, so I decide to just take my showdown value, and we do win this hand with our pair of 8s when the big blind shows King 5 offsuit. All right, this is the hand of the session. We look down at a suited 1-gapper. Once again, this time we've got 8 6 of spades in the hijack, and we've got a bunch of limpers in this pot. So when it gets over to me, I decide to raise this up, and I make it 15 to go. Once again, I think I could be raising a bit larger, maybe making it 17 or 20. But as played, everyone decides to put in the call. So we are going to end up going 5 ways to a flop here. The flop comes down pretty darn good for our exact hand, though. So I'm pretty happy to see 9-4 jack with 2 spades. Now the under the gun player who limped decides to lead out here on this flop, and they make it $15 to go, and the middle position player decides to put in the call. Now the question is, do we want to raise here and try to get people off of their hands, or do we want to just put in the call? I decide to just go ahead and put in the call here. I make it 15 to go, and everyone else decides to call as well. So we're going to continue on here 5 ways to a turn, which is the king of spades, giving us the flush and completing a lot of the straight draws, flush draws, etc. Now both players decide to check it to me, and I want to get value here with my flush. So I put in a $65 bet. Player on the button doesn't think too long before going all in. They make it $95 more to go with their all-in shove. Everyone else decides to get out of the way, so the action is quickly back over to us. Really, it's just a math decision here at this point, right? $95 more for me to call and win a pot of $376. I don't think that we can be folding here at all, but this does put me into the tank for a little bit here. Just thinking about what other flushes he could possibly have in this situation. I mean, I guess he could show up with a suited ace here frequently. He might show up with a hand like, I don't know, Jack 10 of spades or something like that. But I just don't think we can fold. I think we're getting too good of a price. So I decide to flick in the call, and we are good when he shows us Queen 10 of clubs for the turn straight. 7 of clubs on the river doesn't change anything. We flip over our flush, and the player is very disappointed to see that we have the winning hand here. And we take down a $471 pot here with our suited 1-gapper, 8-6 of spades. All right, in this next one, we pick up ace-jack offsuit in the small blind. 1 limper in the pot in the hijack puts in the $2 call. The cutoff decides to go ahead and raise this up, but it's a pretty small size. They make it 8 to go. Button doesn't think too long before putting in the $8 call, and I think this is a good spot to put in the squeeze. So I go ahead and raise this up. I make it $35 to go. The original limper here in the hijack folds pretty quickly, and the cutoff decides that this is a good price, and they're going to put in the call. So they go ahead and put in the $35 call. The button doesn't think too long at all before letting his hand go. So we're going to go heads up here to a flop. Flop comes down monotone. We see ace, 7, 4, all clubs. So we do flop top pair with a pretty decent kicker, but it's a pretty dangerous board. And I think this player is going to call with any club in his hand. So I decided to go a little bit larger here and make it 45 to go, but they quickly fold their hand, and we end up taking down this pot with our ace-jack and our flopped top pair. All right, we pick up Big Slick yet again for the third time in this episode. This time it's offsuit. Ace of clubs, king of diamonds, folds to me in middle position. I make it 12 to go. Everyone else gets out of the way, but the big blind decides to put in the call. So we're going to go heads up here to a flop, which gives us trips. King, king, 4. And better yet, the big blind decides to take this opportunity to donk bet $20. I quickly call, and I think I acted a little too fast here. I should have taken my time to think. We see the 3 of hearts. Big blind slows down and checks. I check, getting a little deceptive, and the 8 of spades peels off on the river. We've got to get some value here when the big blind checks on the river. I bet 40, but he quickly folds. I think players are just donk betting with complete air. Let me know what you think their donk betting range consists of in the comments below. All right, this time we've got king, jack of diamonds in early position. There's a limp under the gun. I decide to raise this up to 15. The button decides to put in the $15 call. The big blind decides to put in the $15 call. And the limper decides to put in the $15 call as well. So we are going to go 4 ways here to a flop. Flop comes down king, 10, 8 with 1 diamond, giving us top pair with a pretty good kicker. Big blind checks, limper checks. I decide to keep firing here and get value with our top pair. I make it 35 to go. Button doesn't think too long before calling. Big blind gets out of the way, and the under the gun limper puts in the call as well. So we're going to go 3 ways to a turn, which is a complete brick. It's the deuce of hearts. I think we still rate to have the best hand here. I think both of these players are probably on some type of a draw. So when the under the gun player checks it over to me, I'm going to keep firing here, and I settle on a sizing of $75. I think this is a bit too small. Let me know what you all think in the comments, if I should be going a bit larger here on this turn. As played, I make it 75 to go. The button folds back over to the under the gun limper, who decides $75 is a fair price to see a river card. They go ahead and put in the $75 call. So we are going to go heads up here to a river, and this player only has about maybe $35, $40 remaining after this call on the turn. So if the river is a brick, I'm going to be putting this player all in, and the river is a brick. It's the 4 of spades. I immediately put the player all in, and he snap folds, and we take down a nice pot here with our top pair, decent kicker. It wouldn't be a complete episode of the vlog until we pick up pocket aces. So how about we pick them up 2 times in a row? This time we've got ace of clubs, ace of diamonds in the small blind. Ends up folding around to the cutoff, who decides to put in a raise. It's a pretty small raise, though. He makes it 7 to go. He's got a pretty short stack, maybe about $95 left after this raise. Button puts in the call, and I'm going to be going for the 3-bet here. I decide to go on a little bit larger sizing, trying to induce the cutoff to put his chips in the middle and go all in. Unfortunately, after I make it 50 to go, they don't think too long, and they both quickly fold their hand, and we end up taking down a small pot with our pocket aces. But they did make a comment to me about squeezing and 3-betting too much in the small blind or the blinds, and I showed that I had the pocket aces. Then the table made a comment about how you don't see those too often, and I should have slow played or something to that effect. So it's pretty funny when the very next deal, we look down at the same exact ace of clubs, and would you believe it, the ace of diamonds again. Back-to-back aces, the exact same suits. Never happened to me before. First time. We get a couple limpers in the pot, and I decide to raise this up. I make it 17 to go here on the button. And unfortunately, everybody decides to let their cards go. So we don't get any action with our pocket aces, but I do decide to show the table that I got the exact same hand and the exact same suits. Everybody gets a kick out of it. Everybody erupts in laughter, and that's going to end the session for us.
I don't think that's ever happened before. Hey, what's up, everybody? We just got done with our session. It is 11:30 at night, still Saturday night. We were in the game for $300, and we cashed out for $847. That's a profit of $547. So good night, good session. We played for about 4.5 hours, 4 hours and 23 minutes, something like that. So the table was okay. You know, it was tight in some spots, and then we got some players that would move in and out. Some were a little bit looser, and we got some action, and they would leave, and it kept changing. But for the most part, I felt that we played pretty well. And I'm not going to argue with the profit. I'm not going to argue with the good win. So that is it for episode 23. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Appreciate all of your support. If you liked the episode, please do hit that like button. Please subscribe to the channel. It is 100% free. Hit the subscribe button. Doesn't cost you a thing. And hit the notification bell so that you don't miss future episodes. I will see you all in the next episode. Peace.